So good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is a fantastic opportunity to present this very innovative session to you. The University of Pennsylvania is running a 2-week conference, the Global Oral Health and Climate Action Conference, parallel and during the main conference that's happening in Belém, Brazil. And the idea of all these sessions is to generate policy recommendations, some action points that will be collated and then feed back into bigger agendas in WHO and also government agendas. So the material coming out of this session will be very much utilized and taken forward. As COP30 presidency said, we need to go from talking to action and implementation. And this, I understand, is really at the heart of this agenda. So without further ado, I will hand back to Valentina and wish you success for this tremendous session that you put together.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for this opportunity. And I would like to invite our co-chair, Dr. Elin from Norway, to start this presentation and to introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you so much, Valentina, and hello everyone around the world. Today we come together with a shared commitment to climate resilience prevention, the visionary principle and knowledge of what it takes to ensure holistic health, all in the best interest of both children and the planet. As an advocate for children's rights to quality early childhood education and planetary well-being, I'm honored to serve as the moderator for today's webinar with you world-leading experts on a variety of approaches to our webinar on early childhood education as the first line of NCD and climate resilience prevention. My role as a doctor and professor of early childhood pedagogy and as the director of the Kintnow Research Center for Systemic Research on Education for Diversity and Sustainable Futures in Norway has reinforced my belief that in the critical importance of this topic. And I truly believe that the session today will fuel my energy even more. I will remind us all of the WHO UNICEF Lancet Commission, led by Helen Clark, stated in 2020, a future for the world's children. They write, despite dramatic improvements in survival, nutrition, and education over recent decades, today's children face an uncertain future. Climate change, ecological degradation, migration population, conflict, pervasive inequalities, and predatory commercial practices threaten the health and future of children in every country. And in the faces of this polycrisis, which significantly impacts early development, it is essential to create opportunities for bodily and emotional resilience and for joining forces across disciplines, sectors, and national borders. So I'm genuinely excited about the relevance and urgency of our discussions today and a response to this uncertainty as knowledge workers gathered here, becoming global agents for sustainability by sharing our insights and evidence. Because it is evident, beyond any doubt, that early childhood education is vital, not only for children's development and education, but also for fostering long-term resilience in our societies. So, through this webinar, we aim to raise awareness about the significance of early childhood education and emphasize that children's best interest must matter more in policy making and in everyday practices. The Bangkok Declaration from last year expressed the urgent need to intensify efforts to mitigate the substantial health, social, economic, and environmental impact of oral diseases and health systems and societies. So As a response to these concerns, we will explore recent research, insights, and ideas helpful to enhance, protect, and innovate actions, policy, and the pedagogy within the early years institutions, as well as the ecosystemic levels of society, for the supports of child life and holistic nature of development. This encompasses essential aspects such as early cognitive and social growth, foundational learning, responsive care, responsible innovation, nutrition, health, safety, and protection. And I will also mention play, because we must not forget the meaning and joy of life in all the serious concerns. Through our conversations today, we will uncover how empowering children to care for self-protection, care for others and the planet can lay the groundwork for resilient communities and societies. And we will examine a broad range of conditions fostering international collaboration to tackle the threats and challenges facing future generations. So I will now introduce to you our first speaker. It is Isabelle Filliozat, doctor, psychotherapist, renowned speaker, and author of numerous books from the Institute for Professional Development in Emotional Intelligence from France. So your presentation, Isabella, has the triggering title, To Heal the Planet, we must first heal humans, the role of early emotional regulation and daily practices in the prevention of NCDs and planetary harm. So we look very much forward listening to your opening talk. So the microphone is yours, Isabelle.
Thank you so much, Elin. So I am a psychotherapist, and I'm the author of more than 50 books on emotional intelligence and parenting. I was also, as a leader of positive parenting in France, the vice president of the French 1000 Days Commission. I lead 2 university diplomas, one on the 1000 Days in Lille and one on attachment, emotional skills, and trauma in Marseille. And I initiate trauma-informed policies in different cities in France. It is a great honor to be part of this global discussion about climate. I want to address a special thank you to Penn Dental Medicine University for hosting this important conference, and I'm especially grateful for the determination of Julian Fisher and for the visionary IIOPE team for integrating the topic of early childhood education into the climate discussion. And a special nod to the chain of people thanks to whom I'm here today. Katerina Tomsova, Mark Moller, Natalie Vicarini. We exist through our connections. Recent CU COP declarations have established a link between climate and health. The COP28 Climate Education Declaration underscored the importance of environmental education. Today, as COP30 is unfolding in Belém, I will be connecting climate, health, and education. Melting ice caps, cancer, school failure, behavioral disorders, diabetes, devastating floods, anxiety, obesity, poverty, depression, cardiovascular disease, tornadoes, attention deficit, hyperactivity, addictions. The climate crisis is not isolated. We are also facing a crisis of mental health, physical health, and social cohesion. As if we were overwhelmed firefighters, we try to fix every issue, rushing from one fire to the next. We treat, we repair, we compensate. But there will never be enough firefighters if humans' way of living keeps lighting new fires every day. All these symptoms are largely diseases of civilization, rooted in our most ordinary habits. Teaching about global warming, its causes, its consequences, is essential, but insufficient. Knowing what is at stake is not enough to change behaviors. If the climate crisis stems from human behavior, we must address the determinants of that behavior. I'm here to position early childhood, relational security, and the development of emotional and executive skills as the infrastructure of ecological transition. Without a solid foundation, the adult that the child will become may know about the climate issues, but lack the inner resources to act accordingly. What's the point of spending millions, billions trying to motivate people to change behaviors when something within them resists? We need to ensure the neurobiological and relational foundations that enable emotional regulation, empathy, foresight, social responsibility, respect for nature, attention, and decision making. We need to focus on human development. Not so long ago, people used to believe that a child was simply born good or bad, that their physical, emotional, and mental traits were fixed by their genes. Today, we know that a baby does not develop in isolation, but in constant interaction with the world around them. Epigenetics have revealed how nutrition, stress, and toxins can modulate gene expression, and the development origins of health and disease, the DOHAD concept, highlights that what we experience in the first 1,000 days impacts our health, our emotional and cognitive life at 40, 60, 80 years old. Cancer, obesity, diabetes, but also hyperactivity, hypersensitivity, attention deficits, emotional dysregulation, lack of empathy. Many of these challenges may find their origin in that period of great vulnerability. What if we use that precious window when the architecture of the brain and the foundations of the sensory motor skills are being built to give every child the best possible start? In a baby's brain, 1 million neural connections form every second. Interactions with caregivers and explorations literally build the architecture of the brain. Genes provide the framework, but it is the encounter with the environment that shapes the person. The child learns to feel safe in their body and in the world or not. Every movement, every gesture, every game, every daily habit also shapes the child's body, builds their bones, strengthens their muscles, tone and balance, and integrate their senses. What kind of holding and handling best nurture a baby? What kind of contact objects and habits may help or hinder a toddler's development? A child who spends too much time in a rocker or a car seat may lose tone in its back and abdominal muscles. And we need those to hold emotions, express them appropriately, and keep our body in place to be able to learn in school. What children eat, how they move, breathe, sleep, explore, love, and are loved, all of this shapes who we become. Habits mold a child's physical structure and skills. Prevention means equipping children with a healthy habit. Nasal breathing, chewing, distance vision, coordinated movements, and those are essential to be able to regulate their emotions and to focus at school. A properly positioned tongue shapes the dental arch and palate. Ensure clear airways, good ocular convergence, and supports good posture. A simple imbalance induced by a tongue tie, too much pureed food, or overuse of a pacifier can set off gradual adaptations of the jaw, the throat, the eyes, inducing a cascade of effects that can lead to learning difficulties. We can no longer consider a symptom separately from another, or an organ separately from its function. Yet today, each specialist tends to view a child's issue through the narrow lens of their field. Like the blind man and the elephant, one touches the trunk and says, it's a snake, another a leg, no, it's a tree trunk, another the ear, you're wrong, it's a giant fan. The pediatrician looks at the tonsil inflammation, the orthodontist at occlusion, the speech therapist, speech, the gastroenterologist at the microbiome, the psychologist at emotions, and each treats the child as if he was a closed system that could be fixed by replacing a part or with antibiotics, glasses, braces, or Ritalin. Our extreme specializations have led to major advances, but they have also fragmented our perspective. Very few psychologists today connect a child's anxiety to a possible gut flora imbalance or poor eye convergence. Few think to link frequent tantrums to muscle tone issues or too much cereal this morning disrupting blood sugar or lack of free playing nature. Yet, like a row of dominoes, everything is connected. Simply treating a symptom, giving asthma medication, without seeing the whole elephant, tongue dysfunction and sleep apnea, for example, not only fails to address the root cause, but may worsen it. Understanding the system and how it constantly adapts to its environment will be more efficient. The key word in living system is adaptation. What if diseases were adaptive phenomena? This is what Dohad suggests, and what Professor Hans Selye told us in 1951 when he coined the term stress. Searching for the common thread in all illnesses, he described the general adaptation syndrome, he later called stress. His definition? Stress is a body's effort to adapt to any demand. If we understand diseases, disorders, and behaviors as adaptations, we may interrogate what happened to the child. Now, why are children increasingly anxious and intolerant to frustration? How can we explain that they no longer know how to build forts in the trees, no longer dare to walk barefoot in the grass? And how have humans come to harm our planet so severely as to disrupt the climate and our own health? A chained elephant sways for hours, shifting from foot to foot. A stressed child becomes hyperactive, anxious, aggressive, or withdraws. In their body, elevated cortisol and blood sugar, increased inflammation. This is not pathology. It is adaptation to an unsuitable environment. Does our elephant live free in the savannah or in captivity? Is its mahout gentle or brutal? In a similar way, we cannot understand a child's behavior or health problem without considering his history, their exposure to risk factors and protective factors, the stress they endure. Stress itself is not pathological. It is an adaptive response. But chronic stress becomes toxic, especially without relational support. The still face experiment showed that when a mother's face becomes expressionless, a baby quickly shows signs of intense distress. Within minutes, the loss of synchronization, the lack of emotional response creates measurable stress in his baby. No damage is done if the mother comes back quickly enough to restore communication. Another study on adults. You're playing a virtual ball game with two avatars. Suddenly, those two start playing by themselves. After 2 minutes of being excluded from the game, you feel uneasy. After 7, your confidence wanes, and in just 10 minutes, your cognitive functions decline. Synchronization, others' responses, emotional contact, these are all biological necessities. We have to realize how deeply silent treatment, discrimination, withdrawal of love, and isolation can impact physiology, well-being, and performance. In order to thrive, a young child needs more than safety. He needs to feel safe. He needs relational safety signals. Love is not a reward, it is fuel, and a child needs it most when overwhelmed by emotions. We now know that our brains communicate, that our physiology synchronize and co-regulate. Co-regulation is a subtle dance where the adult lends their mature nervous system to the child to help them regain emotional balance. Non-communicable diseases are multifactorial, but one factor stands out. A factor so common, so pervasive, we no longer see it. The adverse childhood experiences study revealed it, childhood trauma. The higher the score, the greater the risk of chronic illness, mental disorder, addiction, and reduced life expectancy. Global data shows that 3 out of 4 people have experienced at least one traumatic event in childhood, and 1 in 8 has experienced more than 4. How many children already bear the scars of physical, sexual, or psychological violence? How can we strike, humiliate, or terrorize children? How can we remain so collectively blind to their suffering that we do not make their protection our top priority? Through the same mechanism that allows us to bomb a city, destroy human lives and ecosystems by cutting ourselves off from empathy. Through the same mechanism that allows us to raise chicken and pigs in factory farms or buy fast fashion by numbing our emotions. This mechanism is called dissociation. And once again, this is an adaptive phenomenon, unfortunately self-reinforcing, because each insensitive act cuts us off a little more. This is how our brain works. When something terrifying or overwhelming happens to us, where stress exceeds our capacity to cope, the brain triggers a neurobiological survival mechanism. It short circuits, releases numbing substances, and disconnects emotion. The memory remains trapped. That's traumatic amnesia. Pain is encapsulated. Years later, it can resurface, but we do not understand it. In addition to individual trauma, there are echoes of collective traumas that we have not been able to heal. We carry so many unresolved traumas that we must maintain this dissociation to avoid being overwhelmed by suffering. A traumatized person is at risk of illness, risky or avoidant behaviors, drinking, exposing themselves to shocking content like pornography, ultraviolence, or becoming violent themselves. Always with the same goal, to numb the pain. Armed conflicts, ecological destruction, climate disruption, domestic violence, and violent education are not separate. They are different manifestations of the same collective dissociation. Numbing enables violence, which in turn creates new trauma. Not every traumatized person becomes violent, but one aggressor can create many victims, and inevitably, generation after generation, the number of aggression grows. That could be why our society is so brutal, even though scientists have proven that we are a highly social empathetic species. We humans are not irresponsible or inherently violent. We are dissociated. This is why superficial appeals to respect nature are insufficient to change behaviors. We must reclaim control over our automatic responses. We must develop trauma-informed policies, recognize and heal individual and collective traumas to reclaim our sensitivity, our connection to life, and finally be able to behave responsibly. And guess what? Teaching psychosocial skills, understanding one's own emotions and others, building positive relationships, shows the highest level of evidence for reducing trauma's impact. We must integrate this powerful protective factor in educational programs, remembering that executive functions and emotional regulation depend on a functional breathing body. Prevention is not just acting early, it is acting differently. It is recreating the natural conditions for harmonious growth. The child is a learning system. Life self-regulates, repairs, and adjusts if we allow it to. Elephants are true ecosystem engineers. clearing bushes, creating light corridors and water sources for all animals, regenerating the forest, fostering carbon storage, and look at them. When an elephant calf is born, the whole herd raises it. If a baby falls, 10 trunks reach out to lift it. The adults adjust their pace to match the young ones. When a calf is in distress, the others draw near, surround it, touch it with their trunk, and emit soothing sounds. They console it. They synchronize their physiologies. To reverse climate disruption, prevent wars and diseases, we must pace the rhythms of our children, care for them, nurture their emotional intelligence in a functional body. And in all our relationships with adults and children, prioritize relational safety. Love. Yes, love. That word we dare not speak, though it is the structuring force of life. It is time to include children in the climate equation, to stop the snowball we already see growing before it becomes an avalanche. Investing in the first 1,000 days is the most profitable investment our societies can make for health, education, the economy, social peace, and the planet. Caring for our children, they will take care of the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Isabelle, for your lovely message. I will keep in mind your message of love is the fuel, and I will also remember the elephants. Thank you so much.